Welcome to Mooney Reads, and welcome to a book tag. I was tagged a little while back by Elliot from Elliot's Library to do the 8 Memories book tag. And the idea of this tag is that you pick 8 books that you have really strong memories around and talk about those. I guess a little bit about the books, but mostly about what memory you have attached to them. So many of these books I associate almost with more like times in my life and details about where I was at those particular times rather than like one event or something like that. So I guess kind of keep that in mind. I'm filming this part after having already filmed it, so I can hopefully edit out caveats that I kept making. This is a really interesting exercise, especially because it kind of makes me think of like what it is that I even associate with a lot of books, especially as someone who like doesn't really have that great of a memory. It was really interesting to really sit with kind of what came up with some of these. So, the first book that I have for this is The Giver by Lois Lowry. And this is one that I read for school, 7th grade English. And the kind of memory that I have around this is that English class. I don't have the greatest memory. And I definitely have parts of time that, like, I just couldn't tell you what happened that year, or I could only tell you what happened at these particular times. So the fact that I remember so much of this English class is a testament to, I think, how good the English teacher was and how engaging it was. So I read The Giver in that class, and it blew my mind. I think it was probably one of the first books that I'd read that really tackled like some of the big things that this does, like looking at society and memory and morality in a really big way. And I was like a really quiet, shy kid, and I didn't have friends in that class. So it really was about the teacher and the content. Like, I remember we read that. We also read The Little Prince, and I remember talking about that in class. And we also had this big poetry project that I really loved. I remember really vividly doing a poem on, I think, a particular kind of like, I want to say paint horse. I was like obsessed with horses when I was young. And so I was really happy that I got to do that. So yeah, those are my memories with The Giver, which is also happens to be one of my favorites. The second book that I have is kind of 2 books, but it's one memory, so I don't think it's cheating. And that's The Realm of Possibility by David Levithan. This is the first David Levithan book that I read that was only written by David Levithan. So in that way, Will Grayson by John Green and David Levithan kind of go with this memory too. Just because David Levithan was, to my knowledge, the first gay writer that I read, or at the very least the first gay writer writing gay characters. And that was just like really big to me. This and also The Giver, like I have vivid memories of reading the book. Not just I remember what happened in the book, but the experience that I had while reading the book. Like I can picture what room I was in when I was reading it and the different things that I was thinking. And so in that way they were like really big for me, and so in that way I think that's kind of one of the reasons why I chose them, because I do really remember reading them like in a visceral way, even though I was younger, particularly with The Giver. The Realm of Possibility and Will Grayson I read as a college freshman, which was in like 2011, 2012. I hate how time passes, but here we are. But this was before I was even really like out to myself or like really aware, but I still remember feeling so excited to find a book with gay characters. This was also in my era of reading banned books. Like I started a vlog and a project where I wanted to read the top 100 banned books of the past decade, which I didn't do all the way, but I did read quite a bit for it. but like that was kind of on my mind with it too. For number 3, I have Making History by Eric Marcus. And more recent editions of this is Making Gay History. He also has a podcast. This is oral history of gay people, the gay community, from I think the early 1900s through its publication, so around 1990. And this book makes me think a lot about where I was at towards the end of my undergraduate and college. This is when I was more starting to really be active in my local queer community. I was also trying to decide what exactly I wanted to do because I had basically an English degree, but I still I had realized that I didn't actually want to teach high school, which was my plan. And despite going super consistently, I didn't even take like summer breaks really. I was still a year out from being able to graduate, but the only classes I needed were education. And since I didn't want to do that, I kind of had to decide if I wanted to change my major, even though I was basically done with a major, 2 minors, and like a 75% of a third minor, or get a graduate degree, which is what I ended up doing. I got my master's in sociology, and this was in the time when I was trying to decide what exactly I wanted to focus on. And like I took a sociology class, a social work class, and women's and gender studies, but I was also reading this book around that time, and that makes me think of kind of when I was choosing to go the path of like sociology, and it really lit an even bigger fire under my kind of passion for human rights, especially reading what all of these people went through. Around this time in the sociology class I was taking, I had also read I don't know if I have the particular article, but it was an article that was on risk behavior for HIV and AIDS for trans people, and kind of talking about risky behavior and what kind of sociological and psychological things lead to that. And kind of reading that and seeing kind of stuff that people were going through at the same time that really pushed my trajectory towards sociology and like research, but also like very much towards the queer community. So I think this one's similar to the last one. It's more like I vividly remember where I was in my life, but in the way that the realm of possibility makes me think of where I was as a reader. That Making Gay History makes me think of where I was several years later, more as like an academic, or like what my passions were at that point. Number 4 is The ABCs of LGBT by Ash Hardell, which is such a cool project. Ash Hardell put this together kind of with the community, and part of my memories with this book is like following them online and seeing them talk about the different people who they were talking to, and I think they might have even released some videos with people, and I even got to edit part of the free version that's online, because it was a very like crowdsourced project, and you get a lot of experiences from a lot of different people. So this book makes me think of really being into not just their channel, but like their advocacy. And again, I think that sort of maybe ties into Making History, because this would have been maybe like slightly before and bleeding into that period of time. I even got to cite this book in my thesis, because the thesis that I ended up doing was on the role of language in development for LGBT people, particularly those who use kind of non-traditional labels and stuff. For number 5, I have Stone Butch Blues by Leslie Fienberg. And this one makes me think of the last big trip that I took before the COVID lockdown happened. I read this while I was on my trip to Arizona. My mom and I went to go see my brother, and it was just a lot of fun being able to see him, especially because we didn't get to see him that much. We had lived in Tennessee. We ended up even like going out, and we went to a lot of different places, including a queer bar, and like that was just really cool and very fun. Kind of the last big good time before things got really shitty. So that's what that one kind of makes me think of, just because of when I was reading it. And then for number 6, I have Captive Genders. And this I buddy read with my now partner Brent, who was Rad Reads on YouTube, and Bookstagram. He's not really online anymore, but we met through Bookstagram and BookTube, and this was like the reason we ended up starting talking. I think I hauled it, and then he messaged me, and we'd talked before, but just through messages, and we decided to buddy read it. And the first time that we met to chat about it, we talked about like literally everything else. We stayed up so late. I think we talked for like 6 hours or something ridiculous. So that kind of sparked that friendship, and that's one of the things that this book makes me think of. Next, I have the manga Blue Period. I've only read 1 volume of this so far, but I would like to read the rest. This is one that makes me think of my brother David, who recently passed away in March of this year. And I got him the first volume and ended up reading it before I gave it to him. I also read, I think, the first volume of Demon Slayer that I gave my other brother around that time. So, like, that was a fun little project to try to, like, read it before I gave it to them, to kind of have that bit of connection and to see what they're into, because I think both of them had, like, specifically asked for that. But Blue Period in particular is the one I'm focused on, just because he passed away, and I was able to keep his collection of Blue Period. I actually have the first 3 volumes with, it's kind of a funny story, which is his favorite book, on a shelf with some of his stuff, and just because they make me think of him. Again, maybe cheating a little bit adding books, but those also make me think of like other media that we shared, or like that like similar interests. He got me to read and watch initially and then read Dear Evan Hansen, which I really love, and I actually did, I think, a video on forever ago. And so those are some things that makes me think of. And he has the first I think it's 13 volumes of Blue Period. So I want to read those and buy the last 2 volumes to complete his set, and just be able to read the rest and feel close to him in that way. I don't know why I made from 2 weeks ago decided to put a book on the list that would make me cry, but that's fine. It's fine. And that, I think, is also very related, like, in my head. Again, it might be cheating to add extra books, but I think, like, a big way that I feel close to other people in general is, like, shared interest in media. And I also have a Star Trek book, plus a few other things for my granddaddy, too. My granddaddy passed in 2018. But having that sort of thing around. It's not even, like, just specific memories, although Blue Period, there's that maybe pre-Christmas that I associate with it, too. But having kind of the memory of those people associated with those books is, like, big or important. And then the final book that I have on this is The Perks of Being a Wallflower. And that's one of my all-time favorites. And I feel like I have so many memories with this book and with the movie, because I kind of lump them together in my head. This is another one that I have really vivid memories of the experience of reading the book. And I read and reread this so many times. Probably around like 2013 or something like that. And just like remembering where I was like as a reader, and remembering like just feeling so connected to a character in that way was just really big. I also have different memories with the movie, and people who I watched it with, and just having a really great time with that. I feel like I've watched and rewatched it so many times and with different people, and I guess it has been like 3 years ago. I did reread Perks of Being a Wallflower, and that was a really positive experience, and also really shows how good rereading books has been, or it can be, and I don't do that nearly enough. One of my goals for November is supposed to be to reread books, and I haven't been doing a ton of reading so far this month. But that's fine. I've been crafting a lot. So that's the 8 Memories book tag. Hopefully these weren't too vague. I feel like a lot of them aren't like a specific like action-packed like small thing. It's more of where I was at these particular times, and the fact that these books represent something more than just the literal story in them. So let me know if you've read any of these in the comments. And I don't have any people to tag. I feel like I'm so bad at that because of social anxiety mostly. So if this tag sounds cool, consider yourself tagged. Thank you all so much for watching. Bye.